Tonight we're talking with three wonderful girls from our parish who are born in Canada and about Ukrainian Christmas traditions that are celebrated here in Canada. And I'll let them introduce themselves, and we will start talking about, first we'll start with Zora, who came or was born in the center of the universe, and that is Saskatchewan. So
Wonderful,
Zora.
It's the center of my universe anyway.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Zora.
Well, I'm going to read this so that I keep on track here. I am Zora Lutzik Jackson. Slava Isusa Christu. I'm happy to be with you tonight to share my narrative with you about Ukrainian Christmas on the prairies, as first practiced by the Ukrainian immigrants. Let me take you back to a small village of Krydor, where an immigrant family lived, Theodore and Evdokia Lutzik, my paternal grandparents. They came as single people around 1903 from the Western Ukraine to an area around Rostrum, Saskatchewan, near Saskatoon, to work on farms owned by German farmers. Several years later, married, they resettled as one of the first pioneers in the Krydor area, and Krydor was named after Dido and Pan Kresak. The K-R-Y from Kresak was coupled with the door from Theodore, hence Krydor was born. I must say that there's a book in Saskatchewan saying how all the little towns are named, and many of them were like this, from the immigrants. They paid them homage. Krydor was only 22 kilometers from the town of Hafford, my center of universe, where I grew up. It was on the number 4-way highway between North Battleford and Prince Albert. It seemed much further when I was young, and we would take the journey. Every Christmas Eve, as my parents grew older, my mother would cook the food and, wrap it up with blankets because we had to drive 21 kilometers to deliver this food for Christmas Eve. Before I was born, the roads were impassable for cars in the winter, and families would travel in the caboose. Has any of you heard of the cabooses? They're little houses built on runners, pulled by horses with bells ringing, and smoke was often seen coming from the little smokestack at the back. This was named the caboose. I wish there's some of them somewhere in a Western museum. Others, people in the West, even years before that, well, along with that, they traveled in an open buggy and horse with their feet bundled with hot bricks wrapped in straw. This I heard from my father. I didn't encounter this, but he remembers what it was like before I was born and having to travel when you couldn't use your car and go to see your parents for Christmas. And can you imagine the poor horses? And 21 kilometers is a long ways. However, I recall looking out the window at my grandparents with cousins, each one of us searching for the first zirka, the star. When it was spotted, this was a special signal that the family could sit down to the 12-course Ukrainian Christmas Eve dinner. As I think about this ritual, now searching for the first star, it started early. Before stars were even out, the parents sent the children to the window to start looking for the stars to get them out of the kitchen and out of their hair. The Christmas Eve table always had an extra plate set for someone to recall, someone in the family who had passed away. It had to be a white tablecloth symbolizing the swaddling of the Christ child in the manger. And it had straw under this, and this was placed in the table. We didn't keep this up too long in our tradition because it was very hard to put things on top of the straw. Gravy boats would be tipping over. So it sufficed, we just kept the straw under the table, which also symbolized the manger and the birth of Christ. After the meal, the children scurried to find little treats, their only presents, which were nuts and oranges. My dad said this was the only time they had oranges, was at Christmas. And then before they left the table, there was a ritual. I heard about it, but I never saw it done. It was to symbolize to do with a good harvest. You were supposed to take a spoonful of kutya and throw it on the ceiling. And if it stuck, that meant there would be a lot of good wheat growing. But I remember my mother saying, who's going to crawl up there? No, certainly not the men to wash the ceiling. So they didn't do it. just talked about it. The next day was Christmas Day, January 7th. Dido gathered the straw from the table, and under the table, he made it into a rough standing duduch. You know, for those that don't know, it's like a stack of wheat, sort of, some of it braided. This was a very rough one, where he would take it outside and make it into a cross. Going outside in the snow that was so cold that it would creak when you would walk. And if there was a little light later, well, not so much, he waited till evening to do this. It was a burden because it could have been minus 30 or minus 40 below. It was often like that for Ukrainian Christmas. Guido would find his big shapka, a large hat, with flaps over the ears. The children giggled to see Guido put on a large coat, long to his ankles, where he wore felt boots. He placed these felt bayankia, they called them, in rubber boots to go outside. He looked quite the apparition, sort of scary. When he left the little house, I remember it still, but my parents, I guess maybe I was 9 or 10, they moved from it into town because they were a mile out. They left this house with a thatched roof made from small poplar logs, chinked with mud, and the walls were all whitewashed. This was a ritual every year the women had to do, but it used to reflect, I remember, all the twinkling of the candles that they had. And my Baba had a big fern, and at night they put these candles away, and Guido would take a flashlight and do shadows with the ferns and different things. And, you know, it's sort of like stories for the children because you could see things on the walls. Guido would take a deep breath going outside and close the door very quickly to keep all that Arctic air outside. The house had minimum windows in order to keep it warmer. But one window, I guess, was a little sweaty with, you know, the cold from the outside and the heat from the inside. Baba wiped it clear. She wore a babushka only in the winter. I just remember beautiful gray hair taken back. Never in the summer did she have babushka. And she stood there with the children as Guido and his crooked pipe. We called it the lulka. He never left the house or went anywhere with it. Actually, it contributed to his throat cancer, which took him when he was in his 80s. He took his Eddie matches with him to light the lulka. And I said, the Eddie matches, they were actually made in Ottawa years ago. Remember all the spewing chemical from that? And he would then cross himself and he would light the cross on fire. I've never heard other people doing this, but he stood by this ritual until this pious ceremony of straw turned into ashes before he crossed himself again and returned to the house. I didn't talk about foods because I thought, you know, they're quite similar, but I wanted you to know how hard it was to celebrate and see families without COVID in Saskatchewan because of the cold weather. Thank you.
That's excellent. Excellent, Zora. Thank you. I have a really wonderful comments about it too on our Facebook page as well. And Helena, you were born in well, quite
La Belle Provence, Montreal.
in Montreal, you know, and your parents came after World War II to Canada, right? So how was it for you to celebrate Christmas in Montreal from that?
Well, you know, with the parents coming in and working parents, holding down sometimes 2 jobs, it was difficult in the sense it was really around the celebration of having the family together, and our family was only immediate, and the first family that lived with us when they came in from Ukraine. Growing up, Światwečor was just the prep. I don't know how Mama ever pulled it together, how she was able to do all the 12 dishes, and it was really important that we all had it. Tata would always be working unless it was a weekend that the holidays would fall upon. We would come, the table would be set, there'd always be the prayer, and it would just be sitting around the table and enjoying Światwečor together. And as soon as the meal was finished, because we had kume who didn't live too far, we went to see our godparents. And that was always so enjoyable because having only my two siblings and mom and tato, but no extended family, we looked forward to when we could go to my Krasne and to Krasne. Well, Krasne was a little bit further, so we went to visit with her on the next day, and our holidays started, with celebration. It was always such a big treat to go and cut down the Yelenka with my father, the Christmas tree. And this was something the three of us would do. My sister himself would go, we'd find the Yelenka, we'd put it up. And in those days, it was the old lights that, you had to go in the long thing and find that one burnt out lamp. And of course, you had to go through the whole line. And then one would burn out. In the meantime, you'd have to do it all over again. And we were impatient. We wanted that Yelenka to be standing and everything. But no, Tata had to go find all the lights. And they were hot if they were on for too long. And we didn't have, at that time, the trees with the stand where you could water them. So getting them a little bit too early was not a good idea, because do Щедрого вечора чи до Йордану, there was very little Yelenka left. It was, you would walk, everything would be just falling off. Exactly.
Because you don't want to burn the house down, right?
And you didn't want to burn the house down. No,
right.
So as far as the kolyade, we really, I think as we got a little bit older, well, the kolyade with the church, we learned a lot there. But the real fun part was when we got to be a little bit older and to go koludovati. So you would leave the meal and then you'd leave the family and then you would go out with your group of girlfriends and you just go and you sing up a storm. And there were always wonderful treats awaiting you. And and at that time, that was always, we'd always be doing be a major fundraiser. It would be major fun for Plast and everything, which was a very, very important part during the whole family ritual. And moving to Ottawa, my traditions, I carry it on. Mama did till as she got older, and then slowly I started to move in, and then both mamas, I had Michael's family here too, and we would celebrate. It was nice. It was nice to get different families together, because my mother was from central Ukraine, near Vinnytsia, and my tata was from Poltava. So the way they ate, the way they brought in their traditions together, and then when we brought in Michael's family, they brought in their traditions, and then we had the opportunity of bringing in the Migos clan, and oh my gosh, I just kept falling in love with all this different food. Like I had never had holubtsi with kasha and rice, and they never had uzvar. We used to have lots of uzvar, the kompot, right? So the fruit juice, and we would put it on our kutya and have lots of walnuts and everything. And it was really nice to share all these different traditions, food-wise, with other families. And that's how we developed our family. So our kids, it's hard because it's not hard. They look forward to it. I mean, we have blended families now, but they all know that they could come to Baba and Yedos, and we're going to do the whole kit and caboodle, and everybody gets dressed up like that. It isn't Światweczor unless we have everybody dressed up. And there was one year when Mike and I lived in Ukraine for 2 years. We had every time we go to the antique bazaars, we'd always be picking up shirts and blouses and beautiful things. And one year we had visitors from New Zealand, Yuksia's now partner and Vanessa's future husband, now husband, and their friends. And anyway, we had 12 visitors, outfitted everybody. So it was grand. And, and then they loved not only the food, but the singing and the caroling that we do. And of course, the next day, we always went to church. That was one day that the folks knew that they would have off, and nobody even questioned that. And when becoming a teacher, my teachers, they teased me the most, because for them, they would say, okay, we have Christmas, and then after Christmas, everybody starts putting away the decorations. I say, nay, we just started Christmas, And So they would tease me. They said, okay, is it over yet? Nope. One more week. Is it over yet? Nope. We have to go to the 21st of January. All the rituals, the Feast of Jordan, the Star, we're celebrating the first day of Christmas, not the end of Christmas. So in many ways, I'm glad that, with all the teasing involved, but I think enriched many other people to the meaning of it, because it doesn't end the day after, Boxing Day. It doesn't end. The celebrations just start. But I guess it's overkill when everybody starts from Thanksgiving, the build up to the holidays and everything. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's been grand, and I know that the food, you acquire a taste. So not the kids don't all love the salmon in the tomato aspect that Mama used to do, but fish sticks go a long way. And you make compromises, and slowly their taste buds all will acquire our delicious strave, our delicious foods, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so basically, I don't know, it's just a feast that we always look forward to. It's sort of, I was even asking Michael today, would we ever go to the 24th? But because we have we have blended families, we celebrate the 24th with a lot of festivities and happiness and everything. But there's something, when you grew up with Światweczor, when you grew up with that tradition and the food being so different and everything, I don't think it's going to be something that we're going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. Дякую, Angie. It's listening to you, it kind of brings me I grew up in Ukraine, and I lived in the village, so all of those traditions are like very, very real to me. They're not. I did not learn of them from somebody else. I was there. Like I was helping when I got older, helping Baba and Dido to make the peach, at the oven, to cook it, to put the wood in it, to bake the bread, to help with the sausages, to go with Dido to the stables where cows and chicken were, something. And my family lived in a very remote village, so we weren't never threatened by party leaders coming in and punishing us and stuff like that. But for me, that was a part of it. And then, but I came to Canada, I was 20, and I was saying in a couple hours ago that I was thinking about this today, that I came on 24th of December 1990 to Canada. So 24th of December this year, it was 30 years since I came to Canada. And then what happened is that, of course, I came to Manitoba, I was all over the place, but I came to Manitoba, was at the seminary, my first parish was in the prairies, and my wife is of Ukrainian descent, that they kept those traditions, So for me, it's always that blending of tradition that is very important. But the spirit of Christmas is always that you get together, you gather, you share, and the reason why I wanted to the reason why I wanted to invite especially you, Helena, because I said it in Ukrainian before, and I just wanted to restate it. The Christmas traditions of Światweczor, especially Światweczor, as is written in many books, like folk tales and stuff like that, were the richest in that part of Ukraine, that central Ukraine, Vinnytsia, all of this stuff, And unfortunately, right now, all of this, due to the 75 years of communist governance, had been lost. Now people try to revive it, but it's not natural. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
In our tradition, for me, it was natural because my great-grandfather was sitting there, my grandfather was sitting there, my parents were there, my cousins were there. So it is natural, but it goes from generation to generation, and the oral tradition is passed, and that's why it is such a wonderful challenge for us now, to truly celebrate Christmas and pass those generations. And I'm hoping that Mike is listening somewhere in there, because he, at this point of time, he would have tears in his eyes. I know that, Mikhailo. Like, you're saying you have a blended family. That's wonderful. It's not imposing tradition. It's just showing how we lived, how we can move on. How we can incorporate something so wonderful that we have into past to the Canadian society, to enrich the society around us.
And makes us who we are too. I mean, it really is part of our persona.
Like you were saying, traditions are not how do you say, if traditions are just like a, how do you say it, frozen, you know, they're not evolving, they're not becoming part of life.
Yeah,
You know?
no, it's true. Because even when we had the families, and then of course everybody sees, and you're still working, and you know that you still want to pull it off, but your parents are getting older, they can't do, and then everybody says, well, how could we help? Okay, fine. One is making, Eva made the most delicious borscht, you know, it's different. It's not the way we had our borscht, but you know what, for one night, let's try something different. And everybody was open to all the different flavors, all the different ways that people prepared and celebrated. No, it's just been a plus. There's never been anything negative about it at all.
Yeah, it's, you know, sorry, Christian, I'm not taking you away your time, but
It's a good
I just
question.
wanted to say that this year, Mariana and Jennifer today were making food for Святвечір, you know, and it's the first year without my mom. So again, you know, that tradition continues, and we have to kind of just, you know, slowly, not imposingly, but, you know, really make it part of our life, you know, make it
Yeah.
effort and make it part of our life. Anyways, Christu, sorry, Christu is from Ukrainian capital, Canada, right? You know, like from
Sudbury.
Sudbury. That's right. It's a very unique place, and if you ever go to Sudbury, you would see this beautiful church of Saint Volodymyr there. You know, Sudbury is growing now, and we're hoping that this church will be revived, because the community will be revived there, because it has such a strong ties, especially for Eastern Ontario, for Central Ontario, you know, for Central Canada, sorry, strong ties, Ukrainian ties. There's so much community was there that, unfortunately, lots of people moved into Toronto and other centers. But you know, Christu, how would you describe though your experience of Christmas season?
So, unlike Angie and Zara, I did not grow up in this incredibly romanticized Ukrainian environment. I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario. Sudbury is a working class city in Canada. My my grandparents came from Ilavcha near Ternopil, near Terebolia, Ternopil in Ukraine. And interestingly enough, my maternal grandparents and my paternal grandparents came at the same time. So we experienced this amazing cohesiveness of migration from Ukraine to Canada in a city that was a working class mining city. So Sudbury, for those of you who don't know, is about 400 kilometers north of Toronto, and it was a dirty city. I mean, it was a mining city. Like, it was not clean, it was not coherent, what have you. And when Otats asked me to be part of this conversation, I said, why am I here? Because I did not experience anything close to what Angie and Zora and anyone else have experienced. I remember Святвечір. I don't remember it. I remember my dad being really sick for a long time. I remember my parents not being able to go to church for a very long time. I remember my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, who were builders of the Orthodox Church in Sudbury, going to church when they could make it work for them, when they were healthy and they felt good. When you talk about Святвечір, I don't relate to any of this at all. I relate to Kolyada. I relate to Святий Миколай at the Рідна школа, where I went to, and that amazing experience of being, you know, exposed to Святий Миколай and what that meant. And then there was this hiccup for me on Святвечір, because we never had those kinds of experiences until actually I came to Ottawa, and I was part of the Ukrainian student movement, and I was invited, because it was January, I was invited to Professor Butsurkiw's house, for example. And I had never seen Святвечір until I saw that. And for me, that was like, wow, what is this? This is not my reality. My reality is Kolyada. My reality was living and singing in the Dnipro choir, being part of Muna in Ottawa, in Sudbury, and going out and actually walking the streets for Kolyada in January, well, December, January, when it was like minus 30 outside. And I will tell you, and I'm old, right? Like, this is what we used, right? This is what we used to collect the money. And I was so lucky because they said to me in Muna, hey, you take care of the money because we trust you. Right? So I took care of the money. It sounds really funny, but it was profound, because when you walk into a home, when you're caroling, and you've walked for 10, 15 blocks in minus 30-degree weather in Sudbury, and you walk into that house, and that house is warm, right? And that house and that family has food on the table and drink, and you sing, and they welcome that. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The reason, дякую, Христю. The reason why I wanted you, Christy, to talk about this is because I think we are, how would you say it? We had a privilege, for those who had privilege of growing up and experiencing this culture is one thing. But it is, once again, and I'm saying it many, many times, and that's what brought me to become a priest, is that we have something really profound to offer the society, modern day society, from our standpoint of our culture and our faith too. You know, you're saying about people being welcomed and stuff like that, you know, and food on the table, and just, you know, 12 days of Christmas that we have, that Western society, carols sing about this, but we don't experience it in here, you know. It's not 12 days of giving gifts. It's actually it is 12 days of giving gifts of presents for one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's caroling and singing. And I was saying it in Ukrainian, you know, when we were theology students, you know, like the kitchen at the college was not at that point of time, was not that, well, anyways, we were hungry.
Hungry and you sang, right?
Yeah. So we would have 4 or 5 theology students, you know, like, and starting from Christmas Eve and all the way to the Feast of Jordan, you know, every night we would go caroling. and singing, you know, and then Pasivanya on the Christmas on the morning.
Can I just say something? Kum, sorry, I'm gonna evoke the Kum thing here, right?
Okay.
Here's my 2 cents in this conversation. Angie talked about mixed experiences, right, in your family, mixed families. So I didn't marry a Ukrainian guy. I married a great guy. He's not Ukrainian. He's Irish Catholic, but he's like simpatico, right? Yeah. But the thing here is how do you grow a culture in that experience? How do you grow a culture that embraces who we and what we are here in Canada, and that legacy from Ukraine in this country? And I think that's a huge conversation that needs to happen in order to grow not just the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, but the Ukrainian community in Canada. And maybe I'm like politically off base here, but I don't care because you invited me. So I'm going to say what I think. But I love Angie. Angie's husband is my kum. You guys are like family. Zora is family. Kum, you are like, how do you, this is the networking and the integrated ability to be able to take what is traditionally romanticized from Ukraine and adapt it and adopt it in Canada, and not just Canada, the diaspora writ large. So I think, to me, that's what I struggle with every day. How do I make this relevant for my 4 boys? How do I make this relevant so that they remember who and what they are and where they come from?
Those are good questions, and I think Christmas.
May I ask, your sons probably have friends that come over that eat Ukrainian food? Because I think I too did not marry a Ukrainian. He was simpatico. We got married in the Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral in Saskatoon. I gave him books to read about what the church and whatever. And we actually flew to Saskatoon before we were married to see the church and meet Father Budnarchuk. And he looked at the church when he opened at the door and he said, "But you have pews here." Because he was asking me where would his mother sit, because he was reading all these books and there weren't any pews, but he went along with it. And the priest says, "Yes, we have pews." And then I laughed so hard. I mean, he really believed me. But he wouldn't go to church often as I did because I was in the choir. But, you know, he was okay to be asked to be on the bingo committee, and he did other things. If the men, you know, took him in, he felt part of it because he was with Ivashko on some committee. And when it took to the iconostas needing to be changed, because they bought it from Montreal for $1, they asked Jim, you know, "Who do you know in the government?" And he said, "I know some woodworkers that do a lot of work in the government, but they work in their garage at home," and he got the iconostas. So I guess what I'm saying is that they're with us, but they're not always doing everything, but their heart is still there because, as you said, simpatico, they're respecting. And I guess Jim's religion was Anglican. So, you know, being Anglican, high Anglican was like Orthodox anyway. But I guess the thing was, I felt guilty taking the kids to Ukrainian dancing and not doing anything about the Scottish. Or what I says, like, take them. And he says, "No, that's fine. They have enough to do." Because I thought I just can't just show him my things without them appreciating, you know, the other side of the family.
You know, can I just say one sentence and I'll be quiet, is we're all very lucky because we all have had these experiences that are so rich and integrative and expansive, not just within our what is perceived to be our own culture, but outside. And I think that is what enables us to create experiences of Святвечір and the Різдво and Kolyada and Святий Миколай that resonates for our kids and our families moving forward. And it's not this thing of purity, it's this thing of joy.
Mm.
Yeah, and love.
And love.
I think that traditions and culture are fluid. You know what I mean? It's not staying in one spot all the time. And the second we start to try to freeze it, was denying to accept the fact that things are changing. That's when we run into trouble. So I think that us accepting others, but us also being welcomed to others, it was open arms, an ability to change. Like, my family now, we have salmon for Святвечір. I did not grow up with salmon. I never knew what salmon was till I came to Canada and stuff like. You know what I mean? So, like, food-wise, inviting strangers.
Father, what kind of fish did you have? Father, what kind of fish did you eat besides herring?
Carp.
Oh, carp.
Yeah.
Oh,
Birch,
out of
carp.
the river carp. Okay.
No.
We did shrimp.
Yeah, but the whole point that what I'm trying to say is that it's our welcomeness is dependent on us. Like, so we bring people in. Not everybody would be interested. That's given. But we are, as community, get together. We welcome people in. Some people come for faith. Some people like food. No judgment passed. Welcome in. Like, be part of our family and stuff like that. And that's about the only way, the simplest and the best ambassador you can have, just to be open to others.
I'd like to tell you something. I phoned my older cousin because he remembered the thing about the cross. That was a story to me about burning the cross. And he's a United Church minister. And he preaches Ukrainian Christmas every Sunday that's closest to the 7th to the people that come to the United Church. And he used to be in the Timothy Eaton, the highest church in Canada. And, it made me so proud to think Stanford Lusick is in another religion, but he's still carrying over his culture and teaching the Anglos what the Ukrainians did, and all he did with Cyrillic. But he reminded me when talked about the fish. he said he remembers, and he's lived in a little town called Whitco outside of Hafford, that the Aboriginal people caught whitefish and came and selling it in sacks because the Ukrainians, my mother always did a whitefish. That's why I asked what you ate, because it was so symbolic to have a whitefish plus something else, a herring. I always had 3 fish and jackfish, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
I have to share this story. You reminded me, because remember, Zora, when we went caroling here in Ottawa with our church carolers, and we went over to the NDP, and it was Mulcair, right? And
Yes,
we were saying when the Kolyade, and all of a
Very
sudden,
Mulcair.
and then Harry Bell, he comes in and he's saying Bog Pred Vich, and all of us, well, I think even Mulcair, he's kind of stopped and what? And here,
he asked us. No, but Mulcair said to him, "Do you mind? The choir, Ukrainian choir, is singing carols." And Bellegarde said, "Do they sing Bog Pred Vichny?" And that's what
right,
all
Bog Pred Vich. And so everybody was just so taken aback, and he just came in there and shared his experience that, of the growing up out west, that the Ukrainian,
in Saskatchewan by Yorkton, right, Perry?
The kids on the bus would always be getting ready for the Kolyada, and they would be practicing all of the Ukrainian carols, and he learned along with them because they invited him in, and he became one with them. And
you know what he told me, because we met at a conference in Saskatoon once. He told me that the Ukrainian people around Ituna and Yorkton were the only ones that allowed their children to play with the Aboriginal kids. Yeah, he came from Black Bear Reservation, and he'd say, "Chlopci nazad," get to the back of the bus. But that story sort of went around the circles. And when Cook had their conference last year, they honored him and they had him as a speaker, and he was one of the best. And one of the years before that, when they were doing the resolution for the Orthodox Church, they included to remember, how the Aboriginal were going through their, what's the word with the R?
Boarding schools?
No, they're
not reincarnation, but getting back to their past. What they did is put down as a resolution that we as Ukrainians stood by that and would do whatever we could for them to achieve what they wanted. I mean, they kept many of our immigrants alive,
Yeah. Lots of stories that we've read. We know this is what happened out west.
So can I just add something to that? Because I think that, Zora, what you said is really, really important and builds on the legacy of the impact of Ukrainian Canadians in major institutional structures, let's just say. So when I came to Ottawa, I was 17 years old from Sudbury. I'd never left any place else. I've never traveled. I came to Ottawa. I met one of my best friends, Lida Migus, and her brother Paul, and I was involved in SUSK, the Ukrainian student community, and at Carleton, and then nationally. And I remember one year, I'm losing my mind here, but I can't remember the year, but we went to the Governor General's, Natishan's house, and we did Kolyada. And I remember Katarina Shepertetska there. I remember Mikhailo Butsurkiu. I remember Halia Moroz. And Halia and I actually ran the show. We handled the show that happened there. And I remember thinking about that years later, thinking, my God, I'm standing in the Queen's residence. Right? I'm Ukrainian from Sudbury, and I'm standing in the Queen's residence in my Vishavanka that my grandmother and I made with my friend from Montreal, Angie, who's speaking French and Ukrainian and me, and we're running a freaking show. And it's what does this mean for me and us? What does this look like for us? And this was years and years and years ago.
But that wouldn't have happened if the Governor General wasn't Ukrainian. It was because of that.
It was at the time it was Schreier, and then
Schreier.
Right, Schreier too. Mm-hmm.
Right, it was Schreier who was partly Ukrainian, and then Natisha. But the thing I'm just saying is we don't know who we are. We don't know what our influence and impact can be. And Kolyada and the Rіздво and Святвечір are part of those amazing traditions, the food, the culture, the religion. But then there's all of this stuff. And like, it's really cool and very, it's very cool to see this. And what I would love is for my kids to understand the impact.
Yeah.
You know,
the Ukrainian Museum, the Ukrainian Museum has, the Ukrainian Women's Association puts out this magazine, Promin. And this last issue, we know that in Toronto, they have an exhibit of beading. They brought together the Aboriginal women and the Ukrainian women, and they have all their displayed of the beautiful beading. And I think that's just wonderful what they've done.
It is. It's truly, it's truly amazing.
One of the things I think going forward, I'm not, maybe because my parents didn't either, but not to force. I am who I am. We are who we are. We find joy in what we do. We don't do it because this is what we did. We have to, we do it out of love, and we do our baking, we do our cooking, and the kids now are coming into the, they want, you know, like Olenka was saying, you know, Mama, we'll, you know, Monday and Tuesday, we'll put it aside, and, you know, I'll be in there, and, you know, I'll take care of Will, and she'll take care of the, you know, cutting or chopping, but they want to do it. It's not like Mama had to say, you have to be there in 6 o'clock. And I have my expectations, because we lose them that way, you know? So given the opportunity, I know that Lyubcha is so far away, she's in Victoria, but she's going to be on the table right next to us on Zoom, and she's made all the dishes, even though it's just for the two of them. And we're going to sit there and we're going to celebrate together. And so it's not an expectation of what we want you to do. We want you to relish in what we love that happens when we celebrate these holidays, or that we're Ukrainian and we celebrate the fact that we are. And to understand that, whoa, there are a lot of changes, and we do. And we're challenged all the time when we're forced to say, you know, why we're keeping the same traditions, why we don't move to something else. And some do, and some have to, and they find purpose in that. And if we just can do what we do, but we do it with love and no expectations, I mean, friends will follow, kids will follow, and I truly.
But here's the thing, okay, like my I guess, sorry, it's just, I live in a testosterone-laden house. I don't have a chance to deal with estrogen. So Zora and Angie, Yaku, Otets, you know me. Here's the thing that I think about. I think about, why does it matter? And so if my oldest son decides not to marry a Ukrainian or East European person, how do I ensure that that person is loved and integrated into my home?
It'll happen. Just allow it.
How? Yeah. Talk to me. Tell me how.
Zora can speak from the experience. Angie can speak from the experience too.
Tell me, Zora. How?
It's nothing that we're going to plan. I think one of the things that I remember my father saying, and he certainly adhered, he loved his parents and he loved his culture. He was a teacher, and, you know, and he loved the Aboriginal people. But one of the things he told me, he never told me I should marry someone Ukrainian. He just said, marry someone who is good, someone who will take care of you. And I didn't go looking for Jackson. It just happened. But I think you have to let your children know that it doesn't matter who they marry, that you have to be okay with it. You didn't marry anyone Ukrainian, so you can't expect them to. They have to marry a person that loves them, will look after them, and is respectful.
And you hook them in with your delicious cooking. So
I
when
can't cook, Angie. I don't cook. I cannot cook. Okay, I cannot. I take
my Malache, you've got to cook in the families.
No, Darian cooks. His godfather, your husband, is the guy who's got to support him, because Darian cooks. He's the 13-year-old is the best chef in the house.
Well, there you go. He's going to be the one that's going to feed everybody.
But, you know, we all break bread together. You know, from our communion bread, we all break bread. And when they say that's a way of gathering with eating food, it doesn't matter what a little bit of vodka and the cider wine doesn't hurt. It's sharing. It's
We don't
love
do
and
communion with
sharing
vodka,
and
just
having
as a
friends.
disclaimer, you know. We don't do communion with vodka, just a disclaimer. Otherwise, people might get the wrong idea.
I'm so taken. I'm just looking at the people that are listening to us, and I have to mention, Father, this is spread out to Saskatchewan. A girl from my hometown, Nancy Cousing, says, thank you, Zora, for bringing Christmas to Hafford. You sent this across Canada, not just here.
No,
That's
it's
wonderful.
amazing.
What
That's
we do,
across the world.
what I wanted to say is that for me, it's this Christmas season is very important, you know, as any other time, you know, because I really like from my childhood, from all my life, you know, Christmas was always that family, you know, caring, you know, just generosity, you know, like no matter what, things would get better and stuff like that, you know. So, and I wanted to kind of bring that spirit from your experiences too, you know, and what you're saying, despite the different locations you were born at, you know, different experiences you had, you know, again, it brings us back to what Zora had mentioned actually very nicely, and that is we are the best when we sit around and breaking bread, you know. You know, so that's what we do, you know. And Christmas Eve celebration, think about this. Our Ukrainian culture is very much agrarian, you know. It's not it's agriculture, you know. It's everything that you have traditional on your table is coming from your household. You go fishing, you catch the fish. You know, you go to the forest to pick up mushrooms to make mushroom gravy. You get your own wheat, you get your own beans, your peas, your cabbage, all of this stuff wonderfully made there, you know. And I think, how would you say it? I think again I'm getting older, so I think for me it's not a romanticized notion, you know. I think for me it's truly my belief that we as a community or as a families have lots to offer to the society here from our culture, and we quite often underestimate what we can give, what we can offer, and that's kind of my take why I do this, that what I did today. And I also wanted to say that I will I send an email to our parish members saying that let's do individual recording for Christmas Eve, for of Christmas greetings, you know. I think I'll just resend the email saying let's do on the 7th around 8 o'clock for half an hour. I'll turn on the Zoom, not to record it, but just to have it on the Zoom, kind of get together and greet each other. We can have up to 250 people, you know. So come on in.
Is this going to be saved? Like, I just wondered, I didn't have a chance to let my brother know in Houston. Is there any way that people can look at this when we're ended?
It's on the Facebook and on our YouTube channel. So
oh, okay.
So you can always go back to this date and see it.
Absolutely.
So our big challenge as коліжанки, we've just finished taping virtually. What an experience. So anyway, so apparently on the 5th of January in Ivano-Frankivsk in Ukraine, there's going to be this choral celebration, and we're going to be part of it. So we are so excited. I know. This is
like,
I'm telling this
came from stuff. This is amazing. You guys are like rock stars.
Well, thank you, it is true. But this virtual stuff, boy, you learn. Oh, you learn.
Was it hard to hear each other?
No, you can't do that. So you have one person does the main tape, and then that's why whenever you're watching these choral singers, they're all have one plug, right. And they're singing their part to whatever the main melody, the main piece of music was. And if they have a harmonic piece, then you sing into it, and then you have one person who meshes it all together.
Love it.
Teresa's cousin Les in Edmonton is doing it. So we had to get it in today.
This is Ukrainian culture on steroids. Okay, people? It's not just the churches where we don't have, in a pandemic, the ability for you and Helena, like Angie, to sing. This is like taking it to the next level. This is amazing. I'm so happy. And Otets, you should do this kind of conversation, not necessarily with me, but with a bunch of other people regularly. Push the boundaries of culture.
Yeah.
Not just religion, culture, religion, and what we are as us. Okay?
To say
And
that,
it's fantastic.
I just wanted to say that to sum up our conversation, Marina and Darina have written something really nice. So Marina wrote that I'm happy that Adriana has been singing Mykolaya or Хто Хто Mykolaya любить for days now, just because she is thinking of Різдво coming. I love that my French Catholic spouse puts on the vyshyvanka for Різдво and participates willingly and enthusiastically in traditions as I know them. That is precious to me. We are the best. We are the best when we sit around and break the bread, even when it is via FaceTime with my eldest.
Mm.
I think we should not overthink what it means to grow our culture and traditions. We should just live it. Христос рождається. Thank you.
I live
This-
alone, and I invite you all to come over and break bread with me because it's hard to be sociable and live within COVID rules.
The thing here is, it's not us in Canada. This is a global space. And so everything that you guys like Zora and Angie and others have done, it's like it's put on another global space. And if we think that we are just inside of Canada, we are mistaken about the potential of the voices that you have shared.
Ladies, I wanted to thank you for today, and I think the comments that we receive on our sidelines, as you can see it, can read on the side, are just wonderful. I do believe that we need to communicate more often about different topics and have it regular. So hopefully we'll be able to accommodate that and accomplish this. But for now, we're almost done. So if there's any last thoughts that you have, or
I want to say thank you, Acha. This is, I know that many times you've had something special Saturday nights and, life takes over, but until you actually have to participate, you have to put aside all those other commitments, even though I'm making collage tonight. And it's for tomorrow.
Hey, set some for me,
I
Angie.
have to think that we would not be doing this if it wasn't for COVID. We're Zooming a lot, you're singing in a different manner, so that the one good thing from COVID has brought us together in another way.
Yeah, and all the comments are wonderful. Everybody who's writing in, thank you. They're very nice.
So again, like I had sent an email to everybody in the parish saying that let's just connect over this software and do it personal family greeting to the parish. I was talking to some of the people, Darina was one of them today, and I got a call after her, that perhaps people are shy, to be recorded on the Zoom or something like that. Sorry, recorded on the Facebook or logging into the software. But if we can get together on Святвечора around 8:00 and just to kind of greet each other on that time, that would be probably the most wonderful, because it's going to be spontaneous, big, people can come and leave as they wish, and it's our parish, like that's what we are doing. Anyways, and I can hear the doorbell ringing.
Someone's coming to pick you up.
Somebody's coming to pick you up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Дівчата, дуже вам дякую. Love you all.